All right. Good morning once again. Welcome to the mandatory business compliance for businesses operating in Ghana. Today happens to be our fourth session, and we are hosting this courtesy of the UK Chamber of Commerce, the Ghana Free Zones, and the WTS Novice Fields. We've been running this series since the beginning of the year. Our first one was with Registrar General's Department. We had a second session with Ghana Investment Promotion Center. The third session was with the Ghana Data Protection. And today happens to be the turn of the Ghana Free Zones Authority. And we are much happy to be hosting His Excellency Michael Aaron Quay Jr. Mr. Aaron Quay, proud to be appointed as the CEO of the Ghana Free Zones Authority, was the High Commissioner to India with a concurrent accreditation to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Maldives. He's a lawyer by profession, an international investment corporate lawyer with an extensive experience in project finance, infrastructure, mergers and acquisition, general contracts, commercial transactions. His global experience is mainly focused on emerging businesses and markets. He's worked in countries including UK, US, ECOWAS region, and South Africa. He has varied area of legal practice in sectors such as energy, that is oil and gas, biofuel, renewable, media and technology, telecommunications, commodity and agribusiness, among others. He had his education, his LLB from Oxford Brookes University, and did the bar vocation from BPP in the UK. He also has a postgraduate certificate from Oxford University, University of Singapore, National University of Singapore. He has a doctorate degree, is married to Maureen Quay, and they have 3 children. Your Excellency, we're happy to have you here. We will give you the opportunity to present to the members of the chamber and potential members of the chamber. So basically, you will give it the floor. We will invite questions from the panelists. It's our intention that it will be done in about 1.5 time. So you have your audience.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say a very warm welcome. I don't know whether to say to Ghana or to the UK, because I presume that this is an international webinar. So either way, welcome to Ghana Free Zones Authority. And not to be pedantic, but the name is actually Okwe, not Quay. I know they are very similar, and you are not the only person who gets confused about that, but Okwe and Quay are similar, but mine is Okwe with an O, so that's what precedes the name. Other than that, the United Kingdom Chamber is not unfamiliar to me. I actually had the opportunity of meeting a representative from your chamber, lawyer Ajuba. I don't know if she's also here on the webinar herself, but we met to discuss a few things of mutual interest and benefit, and to also use the opportunity now to go through the main agenda, which is ensuring compliance with the Free Zones Act in relation to businesses, particularly from the UK. I am very conversant and happy dealing with the UK because I was born there myself. I've lived there most of my youth, and I understand the climate very well. The UK is a very organized business unit, and most of the Ghanaians who come from the UK to set up businesses in Ghana actually do splendid. So this is kind of a comfort zone, and I greet all of you properly once again. Mr. Moderator, I also just found out that you are a member of the bar, which makes you a learned friend. And so nice to meet your acquaintance again properly, even though we may have even met in one or two circles, but not in this official capacity. So without much ado, if we could proceed with the Ghana Free Zones Authority. So basically, the Ghana Free Zones Authority was set up by an act of parliament. The reason why this is important is because it just makes you understand that the government of Ghana particularly has a strategy for setting up a free zones or an export-led economy. Why are we looking at this? One, Ghana is relatively a small country. I mean, if we're looking at markets like India or America or China and so on and so forth, or the EU, you can see the mass of people there. Ghana is about 30 million. We want to prosper. What is the way forward? We need to use the same templates of the Singapores, the Taiwan, and those countries who have been on that kind of tangent and are doing very well. So Ghana decided to focus on a few things. And this has been particularly enhanced under the presidency of Nana Akufo-Addo, because what he is looking at is what we call Ghana without aid. Now, if you want to be Ghana without aid, then it means that instead of attracting foreign aid, you rather need to attract forex or foreign exchange. And how can you attract foreign exchange but to export? And if you're going to export, then it means that you have to have the right climate, the right environment to be able to take part in this business. Another thing apart from foreign exchange, which is part of the drive behind the Free Zones Act, is also the fact that we're looking at growing the economy. Because if you want to grow your economy and your population is small and you don't have the requisite consumers, enough numbers in the middle class bracket, whether upper middle class or lower middle class for that matter, to be able to spend on the production of luxury goods, which is where you would make relative margins to be able to do any business, then we need to look outside. And if you're going to look outside, then it means that now you have to create jobs. Because the good thing is when you are producing for export, you are creating jobs because a lot of people are producing, but it is not necessary for local consumption. So you can produce more and you can create more. And so in a nutshell, what you end up having is forex, expanded economy, creating jobs. So in this environment, you can see that we would already want to welcome any company from abroad who has an export-oriented thinking, who wants to come and produce and, for example, has the market abroad. So let's say a company like Blue Skies or Cargill or whichever of the free zone companies, they have the markets abroad already. Most of them being traded on the world market, but they need a production base. The production base is Ghana. So when you are a Ghanaian and you're coming to set up your production base in Ghana, the Free Zones Act is to guide you and to make you have a simplistic way of getting certain benefits and incentives, which is what we are going to go through. Because I don't want to make this a legal lecture. I rather want to make it a business lecture because most of you are businessmen and not like myself or the moderator who are lawyers and may try to make this whole thing legalistic. Now, so the Free Zones Act was set up. I mean, we're talking about way back in 1995. And this program is to promote the processing and manufacturing of goods and provision of services, mainly for export. Now, I know that the manufacturing side is very clear, but I just want to add a little bit more emphasis on the services regime. Now, one thing that is happening at the moment in Ghana is that our IT backbone is very strong, fiber optics very strong. There are a lot of companies around us in Africa, either immediate neighbors or further out, who prefer to base in Ghana for the provision of services, whether in the mining industry. So you may have a mining company in Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, wherever, but the provision of the service and the setup is here. We consider you an export because you'll be creating jobs in Ghana, but you are servicing foreign soil. So that is one. For example, you could be doing the same thing with the energy sector, all the bunkering services and all the various things, but you are based in Ghana. This would also qualify for a free zones acceptability. Now, there's also another thing that a lot of people get mixed up about, but the Act has made very clear, which is called the, in terms of settling up in Ghana, we don't want to call it just setting up in the enclave, but it is a single free zones unit, i.e. the whole of Ghana qualifies for free zones. It depends on where you want to set up. So for example, if you have your setup near the port because you're doing share and you want to just send it quickly to the port, you can set up there. If you want to set up a juice factory somewhere near in Sawam because you're nearer to your product and you prefer to produce it there, especially where they are concentrates and they are going through preservatives, you can set it up there and we'll still give you the free zones license. So it is more about your entity qualifying for the free zones and not where you are located. Although I must say that a lot of people still prefer to be in our special economic zones or to be in our industrial parks simply because it allows them to be able to have access to land without litigation, land that has not been resold, land guards, all those various problems that exist in the system already. But with this, you'll be able to take yourself away from them so that you don't have those complications. So there are 4 broad areas in which interested investors can invest in the free zones. The first one is enclave development. So that speaks for itself. You come, you bring in an investment, we develop the enclave together, and we start looking for anchor tenants and tenants to follow. Manufacturing, that again too speaks for itself, as we've talked about. Service, which I just explained a bit further, and commercial warehousing. So the commercial warehousing, what happens is people break bulk. So they bring things from all over the world, bring it to Ghana, break bulk, none of it comes into the local market, and then it's exported. That would also qualify. In fact, even if you break bulk and all of it is not exported, as long as per the Free Zones Act, 70% of your production in any of these sectors that I've mentioned goes abroad for export, you qualify. So if you have 75, you qualify. If you have 90, you qualify. If you have 65, technically you don't qualify. So these are things that we'll look at in detail. I don't need you to memorize much of this now, because when you are ready, all we'll do is we'll either talk to you via Zoom if you're abroad. You can also come to Ghana. We'll introduce you to whichever office or officer is in charge of evaluation, licensing, monitoring, zones, whichever sector you need. And they would even expand and help you to get your license accordingly. So the first thing that we looked at under the Act was a brief on the Free Zones program. Now, the second thing we're going to look at is compliance at the pre-application phase. What are some of the things you need to comply with at this stage? So, one, you would need to undertake a feasibility study and then have a draft business plan. This is quite straightforward for most business people. You, of course, have identified your potential clients in the export markets. This is something which most people, before they would even come to tell you they qualify for export, would have done, but we would just want to see some evidence of it. Acquire or commence the acquisition of land or warehouse in Ghana to locate your free zones operation. And kindly remember, I mentioned that your free zone operation, even though we have land in the enclaves that we can sell to you, you don't have to be in our enclaves. But for the avoidance of doubt and for information purposes, our enclaves are as follows. 1 in Tema, 2 in Kumasi, 3 in Sekondi Takoradi, 4 in Shama, also in the Western region, and 5, we're looking at Tamale for the future. Now, the Takoradi one is where I'd like to start, especially with a focus of 3 things there at the moment. 1, gas, which is now very essential to make production cheaper and cleaner. We want to make sure that our carbon footprints are better as we go forward. And gas seems to be a better answer in most of the cases than solar because of its power, and also it doesn't take that much space. We are working on sending the gas to Accra at the moment so that the Accra companies also benefit from that. So that is with regard to Takoradi. In Takoradi also, in the Ishiem area, which falls under the Shama part, we are working on the gas. Apart from the gas, we're working on the train station. Yes, train station. So we're working on rail in that area. We are also working on the port. For those of you who may not know, the Takoradi port, the depth is being extended to become the deepest port in the whole sub-region. So a lot of business activity is going to move to Takoradi. So if you want to establish and set up there, it can also make it much easier for you. Kumasi, on the other hand, also has its relatively near to the new Bonkra port, which is about to be set up. That's the inland port by the government. So when you are in the Ejiso area, which is where we are, that also has advantages. Many of the warehouse companies have already approached us, and we are about to start allocating land from February next year. And then, of course, Tema speaks for itself. It's virtually full at the moment. So we're even looking at 1 or 2 areas like maybe Pram to be able to deal with that. So with regard to the acquisition of land or warehouse in Ghana, these are some of the information that you should know. Now, you also have to apply to the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency, for an environmental impact assessment of the location. You need to also incorporate a company in Ghana with the Registrar General's Department, and then you obtain your form at the free zones for $200, and then you're ready to go with regard to pre-application phase. Now, the next one I look at in terms of free zones act is during the application process phase itself. So what you have to do is you submit all the things that we talked about, your plan, your certificates for your corporation, certificate to commence business, copy of the company's code, evidence of possession or lease or rental of the property as we mentioned, and EPA permit, evidence of funding, transfer, very important. That is required at that stage. We'll let you know. So the application so submitted will then go through a process. GFZA would notify you within 28 working days. That is the plan. And then a license specifying or authorizing the activity will then be looked at. Usually we try to approve it because of the EPA within 6 months, but I'm sure you know what COVID has done with regard to all our various activity everywhere. It slowed everything down. And so we're lagging a bit at the moment, but we intend to make up and catch up. So the initial license fee, and by initial, we mean that for the first time, this is what you pay. Developer, $5,000, manufacturing, $3,000, service, $4,000, and commercial, $10,000. So that is for the initial stage. Now we go to the fourth bit, which is compliance during the operational phase as a free zones enterprise. And this license automatically grants some of these incentives. Very important incentives, but we can go through them with you. But this is just for this program only. So 100% exemption from payment of direct and indirect duties and levies on all imports for production and also exports from free zones. So you have 100% exemption from payment of duties, levies, imports for production and exports. 2, 100% exemption from payment of income tax on profits, and that is for a 10-year period. And after the 10-year period, you pay 15% instead of the regular 25%. Total exemption from payment of withholding taxes, relief from double taxation for foreign investors. The UK is in this bracket. No import licensing requirements, minimal custom formalities. So for example, customs will take your stuff, bring it to your organization or to your grounds or your premises. And then what happens is everything will be inspected on your premises at your convenience so that you can work faster and get things done in a manner that you're satisfied with. 100% ownership of shares by a foreign investor. That is what is the law. Although we encourage that usually when you're going to a local place, it's always good to have a local partner. By that, we don't mean just a local director, but even a shareholder. It gives you more skin in the game so that when you have any issues too, you know that locals will be able to even help you more. Ghanaians who have Ghanaian passports or have some proof of being Ghanaian can encourage investors and also have a stake in the business for shares in, for example, equity, because not many people have the requisite capital or even a sizable portion of land to be able to have a debt or any other kind of stake. So equity is something that we encourage, and we want all investors to encourage working with Ghanaians, and Ghanaians who are also bringing foreigners should also encourage working with them, because I feel that partnership is the best for the long run. Free zones investors are also permitted to operate foreign currency accounts. Free zone investments are guaranteed against any sort of expropriation. We all know that the court system in Ghana is very friendly for international business, and in fact has a very good reputation in that regard. So enjoyment of these incentives, of course, come with some obligations. And I mentioned earlier, the first obligation is it must be 70% minimum of export. So if you do 30%, that will go on the local market and will be taxed according to the local customs duties, taxes, all the various things that apply to the local market. And then we want you to make sure that you carry out only authorized activities and operations, and also compliance with factories, Shops Act, EPA regulation, payment of annual license renewal fees. And you remember the first one I told you was the initial fee. So the renewal fee, developer 4,000, manufacturing, service, commercial. So the manufacturing 2,005, service 3,000, commercial 5,000. Now let me just do a small comparative analysis so that it reminds you accordingly. So on initiation, developer pays 5,000. In continuation, you pay 4. Initiation, manufacturing 3, continuation 2,5. Initiation for service 4,000, continuation for service 3,000. Commercial license initiation 10,000, and for continuation 5,000. So that is it with regard to that. Of course, all the things like the submission of your quarterly returns and annual financial statements, submission of annual financial statement as well to GRA, application for work permits. This is something that in the first and second year, you pay $450 per expat. In the third and fourth year, $800 per expat. 5th year onwards, 1,500 per expat. And there are other documents, of course, which we will require, such as appointment letter, educational certificates, police reports, and so on, especially for the first-time applicants. So we also have certain stipulations like payment of wages should not be below the recommended minimum wage, application of International Labour Organization matters, utilization of at least 1% of the total wage and salary bill towards training of Ghanaian staff, and furnish the authority with the training schedule quarterly. Now, this is a very important requirement. However, we noticed that most of the companies are not sticking to it. And so we're going to devise a way where with every salary that is paid, that 1% will be put aside in a monitored revenue where we will make sure that that money is used for training. Because when we've left it to others to handle, we've not been able to see any progress with regard to that. So we'll go ahead and start to monitor that closely, and we're going to set up a regulation regime for that. But very important, because we want there to be appraisal and upgrade of staff. In fact, most of the companies start with lots of expats, and as time goes on, you start to see that the locals are being trained to take over. And some of the biggest multinationals in Ghana have even CEOs and board chairmen who are local. And these are things that help, especially when you even have them as shareholders in your various entities. So consignment of all goods to the license, free zones, enterprise, and customs documents. Also, no removal of goods unless a declaration has been made. Keeping of records and accounts. Records are made available at the request of customs officers. Goods can be exported into national customs territory. Goods given free of charge are subject to applicable taxes. Notification of termination of activities 6 months before the actual termination. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would just like to state that throughout the process, from pre-application to operating as a free zone enterprise, the Ghana Free Zone wants to guide investors, mainly with the regulation, because you see, with that, there's no discretion per se. But I want to assure you that where we can apply discretion, we will. And we want to work with you throughout the life of the company. The processes have been also simplified, and some of the imports into Ghana, which can be done from the comfort of your own office premises, will make sure that when you are importing things that will be used for production for export, we will assist you with that accordingly. We all know that Africa is being seen now as a new frontier with regard to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Ghana at the moment is also ranked the second most peaceful country in Africa. That's according to the Global Peace Index of 2021. Next is Mauritius, or actually the first was Mauritius, but we all know Mauritius is out of Africa. And so in Africa mainland, Ghana is seen as a very peaceful country. And that is very attractive for your business because it means you have peace of mind to operate. It's not heaven, but we are trying to make everything as comfortable and better as possible. As indicated, Ghana has also signed the Ghana-UK Partnership Agreement, which gives further opportunities for UK investments in Ghana. Ghana is therefore in a good position to receive UK investors, and we are poised to provide investors with a conducive environment to invest. So on behalf of the Ghana Free Zones Authority, I consider it a great honor for you to have spent some time to listen to this webinar. And I look forward to seeing you, your investment, and a good collaboration that would bear fruit between Ghana and the UK. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency Michael Okwe. My apologies for getting the name wrong. Your presentation is it's quite an insightful one. Just to do a recap, I mean, you made a point that the free zone is a single unit zone, which means that it is seen as a one free zone. It means that you can operate anywhere in Ghana. There's not
Yes.
it's not necessarily the point that you have to operate in the enclave, but you made a
Yes.
point.
You know, in most countries, they have free zone designated areas. What we do is that we let you set up where you are comfortable, and then
Correct.
you can register your accordingly. Yes.
So it means that you can operate anywhere, and that's a very good one. But I made an interesting point that setting up in the enclave has some benefits. One of them is tax-free, litigation-free land, and there's also a common pool of resources in terms of electricity and all that. So that's a very interesting one. We also talked about the condition for operation of a free zone license, which is that you have to export at least 70% of your produce outside the country, and a minimum of 30% to the domestic market. I mean, so the essence is to encourage more export. You talked about the requirement for obtaining a license. You need to have feasibility studies, which would include your business plan. You talked about an environmental impact assessment from the EPA. You talked about the fact that you need to have your registration document, and with the coming forth of the Companies Act, you must have your BO documentation as part of it, as we have now. You also mentioned the fact that you need to acquire an interest in terms of warehousing. You also mentioned the fact that the application process is likely to be done within 6 months, but because of COVID, it has affected the issuance of the license, and you are able to improve. Yes. You also mentioned the benefits that accrue to having a free zone license, and one of them includes 10-year tax holiday. You talked about exemption from indirect taxes such as VAT, provided you are meeting the documentation requirements set out in the VAT Act. You talked about exemption from dividend tax paid to shareholders, which is codified in the law. You talked about a guarantee against expropriation of investment, and so the country is more friendly when it comes to free zone. You talked about the licensing fee. You also talked about the fact that once you have been given a fee, you are expected to renew it at a specified time. So I would ask some few questions, then I'll open the floor for my panel members to also ask questions. One thing that I want to ask you, Doctor, relates to you mentioning services. Services. Is it the case that when you export 70% of your services outside the country, you would qualify as a free zone, or there is a specified sectors that the Act focuses on?
Yes. So the 70% is broad. It's the same for manufacturing. It's the same for enclave development. It's the same for provision of services or even warehousing. The reason why I am very interested in speaking to people in the UK, whether it's Ghanaians who want to move back with some business, or foreign investors who want to come by themselves, or Ghanaians who want to attract foreign investors, is simply because it is one of the most secure ways of doing business. For example, if you're a Ghanaian who wants to come to do business in Ghana, you may not have the requisite skill, but you may have the requisite facilitation. And so you can speak to any of these manufacturing companies. There was one, for example, a company in Brussels. They manufacture singlets. And one guy who had been working in the EU for a while was coming to Ghana, decided to just walk there, meet them and say, look, I have a promotion. I want to meet the boss. After a bit of difficulty, he met the head of international operations and explained to them that he's from Ghana, he's going back, and he could help them if they wanted to set up in Ghana. This was off the cuff, he doesn't know anybody. So they were in touch. eventually they've come to set up in Ghana. So we need Ghanaians who are even entrepreneurs by ambassadors. You can be a business ambassador by bringing in investors to Ghana, and most of them, they have their markets already. You see, when you bring something to produce in Ghana, you're looking for a market in Ghana or Africa. That's where there's a challenge. What makes the thing easier is, for example, let's say cocoa processing. You produce your liqueur, world market is waiting to buy it. You produce your cake, you produce your butter. All the various side operations already have a market that these companies already have, but they're using and looking for a production site that is convenient, that gives them incentives, that is less labor pay, all the various things. So you need to put it together as a package and bring them yourself. When you come, me as a government official, I just help and facilitate for you to settle. So this is what we're really looking at. So the 70% is the measure, but there are companies who they do maybe 50% export, for example, but there are companies under a group. They have an export unit and another unit. So if your export unit is export unit, then it ends up doing 100%, right? So your 100% of your export unit, in whatever way it comes, can be looked at in that regard as well. So come and let's chat, let's dialogue. And we have very seasoned officers who will take care of all of this for you. Some of them are even here, and I'll be calling them to answer some of the questions as we go along.
I was making a point that it takes a long while for a license to be issued. My question relates to when does a license actually start? Because I know the law mentioned Commerce Board of Operations, and the GRA also looks at it from when the license has actually been issued. The law itself talks about when actual production commences. Yeah, and also as a CEO of the free zones.
Well, let me also give opportunity for some of the team. So, Mr. Ben, are you there?
Hello.
Mr. Ben Obing?
Yes, sir.
So he was asking, and it's good to have different voices and so that the people can all feel part of this conversation. So he was asking about the licensing regime and how much we're trying to stick to the deadlines and so on and so forth to comply with it. So what do you have to say about the licenses?
Thank you very much. Yes, about the license, please. When we receive the license, what we do is we go through, we vet your forms to see that you've satisfied all the requirements. So, for instance, the duly completed free zones application form, you go through to see that you've satisfied the requirement in terms of the certificate of incorporation, the certificate to commence business, the company's regulations, the business plan or feasibility study, the impact assessment. So where we have a shortfalls, we write to the company to present those documents, or where we are not clear with it, we write to the company to present those documents for us to be clear with the line of activity the company wants to do. So in this regard, yes, when we've satisfied all the requirements, then we forward the documents to the committee of the board that sits on your application. Then it will be forwarded to the board for further vetting and approval of the license.
Okay. So, Mr. Moderator, if there's anything further you'd want him to add to that.
So I wanted to know from when the license had been issued to the entity, when does the license actually start running in terms of for tax holiday? Because if you look at the Free Zones Act, it says that, and it's more emphatic, that from when actual production commences. But sometimes you have the tax authority constrained to say that when the license was issued. So we need clarity from your end as to when the actual license start running.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
the purpose.
Sorry, the thing was breaking before, so that aspect wasn't clear. Oh, but that is a very straightforward matter. I mean, when production starts, when the license starts. Of course, it's on when production starts, because even your license, we're going to look at it eventually from when production starts. So production is actually the determinant.
That's a very good one. That's a very good one. So we'll go on with the questions. One, in terms of manufacturing, is it that the entity must actually have a factory and be producing it here, or repackaging of an imported product will suffice as manufacturing or for the export purposes?
And that's why I gave you the example of breaking bulk. So if you are producing somewhere else, and let's say you want to supply the West African region, and Ghana is your base for export, you bring it to Ghana, assemble it, break bulk, and supply it to Nigeria. It qualifies for free zones because it's not for local consumption. So if you do 30% in Ghana, you pay the local and required taxes. You do 70% abroad, you benefit from free zones.
All right, thank you, Doc. You also mentioned that if you want to apply for the license, you need to have some warehouse arrangement. You mentioned something like that. Do you want to clarify that point for my members on the?
No, you don't need a warehouse. You only need a warehouse if you are doing warehousing. Because let's say, for example, you're doing services, you don't need a warehouse. If you're doing manufacturing, you need your sheds, not warehouse. So it all depends on your entity. So we were saying that acquiring of land or warehouse, because sometimes you may just acquire warehouse for that purpose, and you may acquire land to build your shed, or you may even acquire an already built factory. Some of the services companies already built infrastructure in, let's say, Airport City, 5-story building already done by the free zones company. So in all of this, we just need to have your premises to be able to ask you to fit into whichever one.
All right, thank you for the clarification. My last question before I'll take question from the chat box relates to the exemption of dividend for investors. For the policy rationale from the Parliament point of view is to grant exemption of dividend to the shareholders when they're making payment for dividend. There are subsequent laws that have been passed, which is the Income Tax Act and the Revenue Administration Act. Some of the clients in the free zones entity, you have the revenue insisting that dividend, they have to pay dividend tax when they make a distribution, but the law specifically exempt dividend tax on dividend when it's being paid to shareholders. So I find it more confusing, particularly when the statute is more clear, and when we have a specific legislation. My understanding is that it overrides the general legislation. So I don't know, what's your take on that before I go to the chat box?
Are you asking me this in my capacity as a lawyer or as a free zones boss? Because you have answered the thing in the capacity as a lawyer, but the law doesn't apply here. I'm sure you understand what the conundrum is. Now,
I think
we have I'll be frank. Let's have a good open conversation. I mean, the people from the UK also want to know what is going on and certain bottlenecks that can be looked at. Everything is not hunky-dory. So there are challenges. Now, one of them, for example, is this. The Income Tax Act of 2015 came after the Free Zones Act. Now, ordinarily, if you are doing something on income tax, you would have to consult all the various stakeholders before the law is made, because there could be, as there seems to be in this case, a contradiction. One says, for example, 8%, the next one says 15%. That's one example. So which is which? I have announced the 15%, but at the moment, I know 2 companies who have taken this thing to court to test the law, because that's what it's all about, really. Everybody's paying the 15%, there's no problem. But some people are saying, look, there seems to be a conflict. First, you said 8 and subsequently 15. Is it an oversight or is it an increase? We must all understand that laws can be improved. It can go higher. So we are waiting. So sub judice, my brother, you know that when a matter is in court, we cannot discuss it here and be giving our own further and better particulars. So on that note, I withdraw and wait for the final legal decision.
Fine.
But if I'm talking as a free zones boss, I hope that this thing is sorted as quickly as possible, because then it allows for certainty. You know, one thing business doesn't like is there to be a sort of conundrum where certain things are not chronological, they are not well explained, there's a bit of a mirage around it, inconspicuous. It doesn't allow business to thrive. So once this thing is resolved, it would help. There are even other matters with regard to customs and so on and so forth that need to also be resolved as well. They are actually above my purview, because I don't make the regulations for income tax, I just implement. I don't make the regulations for customs, I just implement. So where the businesses have a problem with that, yes, they come to us, we try to find an amicable solution, and where we are not able to, some of them even go as far as, in this case, go to the commercial court to test the law. And then with that, I would start to refer to the court that would say, oh, why don't we pay 8%? Because the court says we should pay 8%, so there's no leeway. The issue of indirect taxes and property rates, where in some of the enclaves, the property rates matter went to court, and that was removed as an indirect tax, and that they have to pay property rates. So this is a court decision. You can't do anything about it. So this is how the law will evolve and apply with regard to business.
I'm grateful for your comment, and you mentioned that we need certainty for the business community. And I think that if you look at the changes that have been brought by the Income Tax Act, the dividend one was not specifically included in the Income Tax Act, so which meant that it is still aligned with the intention of Parliament to exempt shareholders when it comes to dividend tax. I'll ask further questions, which I have from the chat box. I have a question which say, what is the new leadership of the free zones doing to resolve conflicts between what incentives exist for free zones companies and what actually pertains in practice? A typical example is the corporate income tax. So they want to know how you're resolving the conflict in terms of what the incentives set out in the law and what actually pertains in practice. And she gave example as corporate income tax.
Yes, I'm not surprised. It's the first question from the UK chamber, but the UK chamber representatives were actually not the UK chamber, the economic zone, that is for all the free zone enterprises. Their representatives were in my office. And this time we didn't do it a you versus us kind of scenario. Oh, you haven't done this, you haven't given us this, you haven't paid this. You remember I also had some things to say that the free zone companies are not also sticking to some of the things that they're supposed to do, like the 1%, which they are supposed to use for training from wages, but they're not doing it. So we sat down and said, look, let's go through it one by one. And we won't be able to tackle that here. But we actually sat down with them and we have gone through the thing one by one. Those that we can deal with, we're dealing with. Those that we can't deal with, they've actually set it upon themselves to meet the heads of customs. They are meeting them. They are meeting the heads of income tax. That did not yield much. So that's why they went to court. So these conflicts are being resolved. But it is unnatural that there won't be a few ambiguities here or there, because sometimes has a bit of unclarity, and this is what we should just look at. So we are working on it, and we want to assure them that the free zones is not working on it in vacuum, but we are working with their own representation at the local level.
All right, thank you, Doc. Second question is, how should free zone companies handle ministerial directives, which are obviously in conflict with the Free Zones Act? What would the free zone now do differently when this happens again? I don't know whether you are aware of any specific example in that regard, where there's a directive from a minister and that the directive is conflicting with the Free Zones Act. I'll give an example. The Free Zones Act specifically allow free zone entities to trade in foreign currency. I mean, they can engage. The law is more specific for them. I think in 2013 or 2012, I mean, there was a directive as to the fact that you cannot have currency, and all these things are sharp conflict with the statute. I don't know whether there's many more recent example that you can think about, but this is what comes on top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. That shows that you even have more institutional memory than I do. I just came across free zones matters in the last 3 months. And even with my briefing and everything, I've not come across ministerial directives in that manner. But however, I just want to assure business that even in the UK itself, there are times that government makes decisions that business is not happy with. So they go in consultation with the government and the matters are resolved, sometimes amicably, sometimes not. So we want to assure you that if there's any issue of conflict, and it doesn't matter whether it's ministerial directives or it's an act of parliament or any other conflict for that matter, please draw our attention. And I dare say that the Free Zones organization in Ghana, that is the representatives of all the companies, they've been to me so far 3 times. And on each occasion, very welcoming, listen to what they came up with. And we've offered practical solutions to these conflicting matters. So our doors are open for any such potential conflict. But I don't want us to dwell too much on the negativities because those are usually very little and few and far between.
Is there any specific compliance that free zone entities are expected to undertake, either on a monthly basis or anything specifically from what you said?
Okay, so as for specific, keep producing and keep exporting. That's all you need to keep doing. The rest, as and when, we deal with it.
I'm asking, what should free zone entities expect from you under your leadership in the next 12 months? What measure make doing business in the enclave or from any particular place more proactive for these entities? I mean, what should we expect?
Okay, so with some of these areas, sometimes I'm not sure whether I'm dealing with the UK organizations who are already existent or we're looking at potential investors. So I'll deal with both. So with potential investors, I want you to say to look at a regime where we're going to be very helpful to establish, help you to establish and to set up and look at your problems. With those who have already been in the system, there have been quite a few bottlenecks here and there. I hope that you're already seeing evidence of your own complaints being made to us and action being taken. Anybody who today goes to the free zone enclave will see all the digging that's going on there, the relay of the pipes, new people to handle the pumping, the water being sorted out, and so on and so forth. And many, many other practical things being done. So I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. No need to say too much. Maybe in 12 months, they would rather come and say that under your regime, we've seen this practical step, and that, and that, and that. So I want to leave it to you to judge, but I want to let you know that just draw our attention to any problems you have, and we will immediately start to work on them.
So much for that. Is there any department or any unit that, I mean, complaint can easily be sent on a timely basis? Any unit that complaint can be filed by a free zone entity or potential businesses who are seeking to apply for a license, either as a developer or as an enterprise?
No problem. We have a monitoring unit. So you just write to us, you write compliance, or you just write to me. I like to hear the complaint straight from the horse's mouth at the top. And then I would then reference it to whichever department, depending on how the complaint is. But I want to encourage that all complaints be written directly to me.
That's a good one. Final one for me, then I'll open for the public to ask questions directly. My last question is, are you seeking to automate your license application process so that we can apply online, so that everything can be done electronically? Is there any steps?
Well, we've looked at it, but sometimes it's very difficult to deal with all these audited reports, business information and so on and so forth online, because anybody can just put anything there. We want to be able to scrutinize it and sometimes meet you face to face. However, we're working on a single window IT base, which would make everything much simpler and at a one-stop shop. So once that is done, we'll inform you accordingly and we'll work together. But when the time comes and just like the passport office or DVLA, we can do everything online sufficiently in the business sense. Yes, we'll definitely get to that.
All right, thank you, Doc. So if you have any question, you can raise your hands and I will call you. Any question for His Excellency Michael Okwe, Dr. Michael Okwe? Any questions? Okay, if you have no question, I will ask further questions. So I've seen that you've done toll in the last few months. There's a toll at the free zones, and the Minister of Road and Transport has directed that no toll should be taken. Are we going to see any similar measure applied to the free zones?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you're very much aware that this was in relation to road fund tolls that's being monitored by the government. So for example, the Legon University tolls, I know you don't expect that those will come down, right? Because that's for the Legon University. It's a private land owned by Legon University. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, they have their own private toll system that they use. Many other institutions have their own private toll system, whether private company or government company. So by the same way, the Ghana Free Zones Authority is not under the road fund. It is for the convenience of that enclave and that space. So it is exempt from that automatically. So that is the explanation for that.
All right, that's good to know. Sarah, you have your hand up.
Sarah Adelaide or Dampton.
Okay,
I'm with the UK Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Yes. So I'm just going to read some of the questions on the chat panel, if they've already not been answered. So the first one I'm sure has been answered because it has to do with the tax holiday that the free zones companies enjoy, where sometimes you have companies say that they actually didn't start, they actually didn't commence from the date, they have some issues and they started late. After 10 years, GRA comes to their door and starts asking them for audits and all of that. I'm sure in some way this has been answered. The next one says, what are the plans so far for free zones companies under the AFCFTA? Will companies also enjoy same freebies as other companies who are not in free zone enclaves in other African countries? Is there some sort of equal playing ground for all companies under the AFCFTA, irrespective of whether you are coming from an export processing zone or an industrial zone? And the next one has to do with the free zones authorities' plans towards making the companies located in them eco-friendly. Are there any plans to demand companies in the zones to commit to net zero in the near future? Finally, there are companies in the free zone who import goods or materials under the free zone regime and later send them out to either sell or use for their personal gain. The person didn't complete the question, but I guess the question really is what is happening to these? Is there a lot of monitoring going on to ensure that the right things are done and that no one sort of cheats the system? Thank you very much, Honorable.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's look at it like this. So our job is mainly to facilitate business. So let's say you, Madam Odampton, you come, you have your company, you want to do 70% of export, you come, we look at your criteria. Now, we all know that, okay, before I get to after, let me try and answer this one about personal gain and so on and so forth. We all know that despite the fact that we fear God, we have police, we have courts, people will always cheat. So we are going to do our best to monitor, but I think it would be unreasonable for us to expect that some people will not cheat and not be found out, at least initially. So we are doing our best to catch them. Sometimes we even get the information from the ground, and we're able to deal with such accomplices in effect. So I want to assure you that you shouldn't worry too much about those matters. We are going to deal with them, and we are also open for information from yourselves. As for eco-friendly, I mean, even my house, now I want it eco-friendly. I can't afford it at the moment. So we are going to see what we can do at the next stage. But for me, what is most important is this: basic amenities, are they available? If we are going to have a system in there, one, water. Why should there be a company that has not had water for a year and others who have had water for that year sporadically? Why is the pumping system not working? Why is the thing overflowing? And these are things that some of you know has been happening for years. That is over. Now we are going to work on practical solutions. And I'm sure most of you have already started seeing the results. Apart from new staff, we've already spoken to Ghana Water, and not just spoken to them, we have employed from their ranks somebody who is now dealing with this matter 24/7. We are now even about to add a second staff to deal with this thing that you yourselves came to me and told me was a problem. And that the security guard who's there cannot do the job and blah, blah, blah. You told me about the fact that lots of water is still retained after the pumping because it's not good. We have contracted Ghana Water, they're about to start. Some gave us the idea of how we should get the water from the back instead of always waiting for it to go to the main pumping station. So I've commissioned Ghana Water, they started digging. I'm sure some of you have already seen the pipes. We have also put tests on the air valves because most of them have not seen water for a while. It's going to really be difficult to just get water straight away if we don't do the air pressures first. So we have bought new air valves and we are already taking out the pressure in preparation. So a lot of things are happening. I mean, I've been at post, if not 3.5 months at most. So slowly we will have to develop the enclave, and I want to hear more from you because I will never know the problem until I'm informed. But then it's my job to, as much as possible, do something about it. We won't get it 100% right, but we should be able to be seen to be working with you practically as an organization. So this is very welcome, and we work together on solving problems as they come and so on and so forth. Now, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a very simple formula. If you're exporting under AFTA, you follow AFTA. If you export under free zones, you follow free zones, but you cannot get both. So if, for example, you're a company that's 70% abroad, but all your abroad is in Africa, and you look at the AFTA benefits, and for you, they are better than the free zones, you just withdraw from the free zones scheme, and then you sign on to AFTA and supply. There's no problem at all with that until we are able to resolve all the various things that need to be done. I'm sure you're also aware that since we started AFTA on 1st January, a lot of the rules and regulations have not still been firmed. And nobody should make you look as if, oh, it's because it's in Africa, that's why they are not ready. No, we all remember the EEC, the European Economic Community, all the challenges it had. And then eventually it was going on, slowly they will tweak this, they will tweak that. Then eventually it metamorphosized from, of course, the European Economic Steel, and then from steel, it came to European Economic Community. Then from that, it came to the Maastricht Treaty. Then from that, so even within that context, it then moved from trade, and then eventually they moved to freedom of not just goods, but freedoms of persons. Then eventually they had to get a single currency. Eventually they had to get a central bank. Eventually they had to get a political system. So we are nowhere near that. We are not even a year old. So we are now doing certain things to get it all together. So in the meantime, continue trading as a free zones company. After rules to start operating, and then eventually we'll find a way to amalgamate the two and to get it functioning properly. So until then, just work within the space you feel comfortable, stay in the free zones era, or stay on the other side, and then we take it from there.
Any further questions? I want to say I'm very impressed with your leadership. I have followed you for a while now, and I know that as you are on this new seat, you will bring innovation to the free zones. You're very dynamic and very innovative leader. So we're looking to working with you more. The chamber also organizes surveys on doing business in the country. And once we get there, we will share some of the findings that we receive from our members, which are made up of UK companies and Ghanaian companies. So if we have no further questions, a message from Anthony.
Anthony, what's his full name?
Mensah says, what are the policy measures put in place to help reduce squat, settling the free zone enclave? What are you doing to reduce squatters around the free zone enclave? That's from Anthony.
Yes, that was because of the broken wall. So one of the reasons why when I came there recently, I went to that particular spot. We've given it to a contractor now. He's going to build that wall to seal it. We've also noticed that one of the reasons why that wall keeps being vandalized, and we're talking about vandals here, not just, you know, if you want to add criminals or whatever, that's a different level, but vandals is access. You know, a lot of the community who stay on that side of the wall, who work in the free zones, in order to create access, end up breaking the wall. So now we're going to have a sentry post where there'll be a human being there. People can walk in from that angle and feel that there's a legitimate shortcut. So that is being looked at, and we're going to sort that out ASAP. The contractor has been alerted, and we're going to start building it. 2, we're also building a second toll gate at the back to allow easier access. So you can come in from any angle, and it shortens your journey and makes it better. So these are all things that we're looking at, but we want to build consensus. We want to build trust. And so we're working with things very slowly and cordially. And once that is achieved, then we will take everything to the next level. So that is the plan for now.
Thank you very much. I have a question from the chat. They're asking about the industrial park and the free zones. Are they the same or they're quite different? The industrial park that is being developed by the Ministry of Trade.
Oh, no. I mean, every industrial park is industrial park. So I want to caution that the Ministry of Trade may acknowledge an industrial park, but it's not under them. So when you go and deal with a private owner of an industrial park and there's a problem, don't come to Ministry of Trade, because no Ministry of Trade official, for example, would have signed the document, or Ministry of Trade has not asked you to go and be with that person. The official partner of the Ministry of Trade is the Ghana Free Zones Enterprise, which is the authority who is in charge of all special economic zones in the country. And special economic zones are virtually industrial parks, i.e. mixed use. You could be a free zones company, or you could be a regular operational company, but still be in the same enclave. So this is the situation.
Okay, that's a very good one. Someone is asking, that is Hassan Diura, is asking, since the inception of the free zones with all the company benefits, do we know the percentage in terms of GDP, how the free zone has contributed to the Ghanaian economy? I think that's a very difficult question. I think I want to escape that.
Oh, no, it's not. It's not at all. I mean, in terms of export driven, we're talking about 1.35 billion. And this is very significant. And in fact, if you're looking at employment, which is another thing that would interest him, apart from the GDP angle, we're looking at direct employment of about 40 to 50,000. But imagine the indirect. The indirect is usually about 4 or 5 times. So this has been a very successful program in terms of economic growth and also job market. And I want to tell Mr. Hassan so much that for the first time in about 20 years, the finance minister mentioned free zones in the budget. So that should tell you how significant this program is. And we're looking at continuing this even further.
All right, thank you. We'll take a question from Doreen Corte. Doreen Corte.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, and thanks for the floor. Congratulations to the Honorable too. Yes,
Thank you very much.
My concern has to do with the free zone, the practice. I want to find out if we, in as much as we want the free zone to flourish or people to come to that sector, we are also thinking of the national pets. And we've seen that we have given them some privileges. Inclusive of it is the concession of the 10 years. However, in practice, we've realized that for some, as soon as is getting to the end of the tenure, then they will quickly fold up and then register a new company. When you have to apply the company's rules and regulations to it, when you lift up the veil, you see the same directorship. I want to find out, do we have any policy to assets where to curb or prevent that practice? Even though, yes, we still have the deviant ones, do we have a policy? Thank you.
Yes, madam. Let me say this, that yes, there is a policy, but let me ask you, you remember there was a company called Ariba in Ghana?
Yes, sir.
Then the company became Space Phone.
Yes, sir.
The company became the company became now today MTN. And we all know what.
Yes.
That's why they call it tax avoidance instead of evasion. They have ways of going around this company law. I don't want to wear my legal hat, because if I was a lawyer for a company free zones, I'll tell you that the fact that after 10 years, the same directors own that entity doesn't mean it's the same entity. And they will make all sorts of arguments. But we have companies who are under free zones for the last 20 years, and they've not changed anything, in fact, majority. So we'll see how we'll work on it, but that is the law, and you're right. But unfortunately, some people may circumvent it in a way that you will not be able to really do much about.
Very well. That's why I said when we lift up the veil.
Yes,
otherwise,
so you will lift up the veil.
Yes.
Yeah, Madam Doreen, so you lift up the veil. Don't worry, let's chat. So you lift up the veil, and then you see that is Doreen there. But Doreen says we are doing, it's a different shareholding structure, it's a different that, and that's a matter for court.
Yes.
Or for GRA, or for, so that's what I'm saying. Sometimes we need to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, in the long run, provision of jobs.
Yeah.
And if they are exporting it, let them export. But if they are bringing it into the local market, then that one, we know how to deal with them.
Thank you.
Okay, madam. Thank you, sir.
Let's take the last question from Kenkeni Isifu Wunili. Can we hear from you?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the floor.
Yes, sir. In response to a question, yes, sir. In response to a question from the host on the dividend payments, I think I remember, and the discrepancies that we may have in the Income Tax Act 2015 and that of the free zones policies as it would be now. His submission, I understand, meant that there is a kind of a discrepancy where he believes that there was no consultation. Probably that's how I understand it. And so that discrepancy has come to be. From the perspective of a law student at the faculty, how is that reconcilable? And if somebody, probably a company, comes down relying on the Act, the Income Tax Act, for the benefits that they are going to enjoy so far as taxes are concerned, and they come to the Free Zones Board and that discrepancy is there, are they willing to bend? Is it lawful for them to want to operate at their point? And, or if I should put it better, are they willing to bend a little for anybody who comes arguing that this is what is presented at the Income Tax Act, other than what the free zones would like to charge on them? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm very happy that you introduced yourself as a man of law, because straight away you were caught like I would have been if I wasn't the free zones boss into the matter of which precedes what and which stands and so on. Law, in the sense of land, possession of land is 9/10 of the law. So when you possess, you are in charge. By the same extension, implementation of the law is the law. Now, I don't implement taxes, it's GRA. And if GRA implements income tax at 15%, you can scream 8% all you like, they will still write to you that you owe them. That is the reality. So the companies, in order to erase this ambiguity, decided that let us go to court for the courts to reconcile it. Because you see, remember, me sitting in free zones as a boss, I'm not a judge. I can never reconcile any irregularity, discrepancy, uncertainty in any law. That is a matter for the courts to handle. And that is why they've been very wise and smart in testing the law in the commercial courts. And I'm sure the decision will come out soon, and then we'll all be the wiser. So this is the reality of the situation. But the applicant or the implementer of the law, which is a GRA, is charging 15%.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much, Doc. Any further questions? Run out of time. Any further questions? All right. Sarah, if there are no further questions, I want to bring the curtain to a close. Your Excellency, we are very grateful for this opportunity. We know you're a very busy man.
Same here.
And you made time for this important event. I have personally learned a lot, and I believe my colleagues who are on the call have similarly learned a lot from this exposure from your end. So the key point is that we need to create jobs for the country. We need to export. We need to apply for free zones license so that we can export. There are benefits that comes with having a free zones license, and one of them is a tax holiday. So for 10 years, you don't pay tax, and that's a very good one. So I encourage all of you to think about it. As the Minister of Finance talking about industrialization, as the Vice President talking about industrialization, let's take a cue from this. There's also compliance required of free zone entity, which is to ensure that you export 70%. You also have some returns that you submit to the free zones entity, specified date, and we hope that you would comply with it. So, Your Excellency, once again, we are very grateful to your team, Lawrence, and everyone who supported this process. I also want to, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the UK Chamber of Commerce, particularly our CEO, Ajoba, Sarah Adelaide, Jocelyn, Margaret, we are very grateful for this opportunity, and we want to thank you so much. So thank you all. Thank you all of you.
Yeah, let me also say something short in conclusion. First of all, I want to say thanks for the kind words that you uttered earlier. Very grateful. This is an opportunity to serve. So once the opportunity has presented itself, in all humility, we just want you to know that nothing is perfect. But whatever the problem is, you bring it to us. And it is our job. That is why I'm paid every month, to make sure that the problems are resolved, or at least we're able to give you a reason as to why the problem exists. So that is the first thing. I'm also very grateful the way the UK Chamber of Commerce has handled this, because you brought to the fore an opportunity to go through the regime. Most of the time when we do presentations, people just want to know only the business and not the legal regime. And so they have a lot of gaps, and it's missing from what they get to find out. So I think you've managed to bring the two together well. And I think the moderator also being a legal person has really helped. So I want to say, once again, congratulations to UKCC, to Madam Ajuba, the rest of the senior members, Madam Sarah, and so on. And to yourself, Mr. Moderator, Theophilus, have a lovely day.
Have a nice day, and thank you so much. We'll have our next session next year. We'll come out with the date, and we'll tell you the next regulator who will be on the scene. So thank you so much for making time with us. We are very grateful and have a nice day.
Have a
See
nice
you
day.
soon. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.